The city never slept, and neither did Evelyn Ross. From her penthouse office on the 47th floor, she could see the skyline glitter like a promise she'd once made to herself, that she'd never go back to the small, gray town where she was born, that she'd never be ordinary, that she'd never need anyone. The glass walls around her reflected everything she'd become: poised, flawless, unstoppable. Every detail of her life was curated: her minimalist black suits, her precision-cut hair, her polished tone when speaking to investors who called her the woman who turned air into gold. She was the CEO of her own marketing empire, a brand genius who could make anyone or anything famous. Yet tonight, as the city lights blurred against the rain, she felt something tighten in her chest. Not fear, not exhaustion, but a kind of hollow ache she couldn't name. Her assistant, Chloe, knocked gently. "You should go home, Ms. Ross. It's past midnight." Evelyn didn't look up. "Home," she murmured, almost laughing. "I'm already there." Chloe hesitated. "The conference in Tokyo is in 3 days." "You haven't." "I know," Evelyn interrupted. "Everything's ready." But it wasn't. Not really. Her entire world was perfectly built. Yet one step off the path, and the whole thing could collapse. She knew it. She felt it. But she didn't stop. That night, after Chloe left, Evelyn walked over to the wide windows and looked down at the city far below. Thousands of cars, glowing like veins of light. Somewhere down there, people were laughing, loving, failing, things she hadn't allowed herself in years. She placed her palm on the glass. It was cold, but it steadied her. "You made it," she whispered to her reflection. "You're everything they said you couldn't be." But her reflection didn't look proud. It looked tired. So tired. The next morning, Evelyn's phone buzzed at 6 a.m. sharp. A headline flashed across the screen. "Viral ad campaign sparks backlash. Yar Studios accused of exploiting workers." She froze. Then another notification, and another. Within minutes, her name was trending for all the wrong reasons. Evelyn grabbed her phone, scanning the article. A former employee had gone public, exposing toxic work conditions, endless hours, mental breakdowns, and her Ice Queen leadership. Every line felt like a knife. By 7 a.m. The company's stock began to fall. By 8 o'clock. Journalists were outside her building, and by noon, Evelyn Ross, the woman who never cracked, was standing in front of a mirror, redoing her makeup with shaking hands. "Damage control," she told her PR team later that day. "We'll release a statement, something about miscommunication, restructuring, mental health support." But her voice cracked mid-sentence. "Evelyn," said Marcus, her oldest friend and CFO, "you can't PR your way out of this one." She looked at him sharply. "Watch me." He sighed. "You built this company on perfection. But perfection doesn't survive storms. People do." "I don't have the luxury of being human right now," she snapped. "I'll handle it." But as she walked away, she realized she didn't believe it. That night, she went home, truly home, for the first time in months. Her penthouse was silent except for the rain tapping against the glass walls. She poured herself a glass of wine, sat on the floor, and scrolled through her phone. Comment after comment. Fake. Heartless. She made millions off others' pain. She threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and slid to the floor. The silence that followed was deafening. Evelyn pressed her hands against her face. For years, she'd told herself she was different, that ruthlessness was strength, that ambition was love. But now, all the voices in her head whispered the same thing. "You became everything you once despised." In the days that followed, her empire began to crumble. Clients withdrew, investors vanished, and even Chloe left quietly one morning. No note, no goodbye. Marcus was the last to go. "Ev," he said gently, "sometimes you have to let things break to see what's real." She stared at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Everything I built, it can't just disappear. It already has." And with that, he walked away. Weeks passed. Her office, once filled with people and power, became empty. Reporters camped outside. Lawsuits piled up. But the strangest part was that Evelyn didn't fight it. Not anymore. She stopped showing up. She stopped pretending. One afternoon, she found herself on a train leaving the city, a single suitcase at her feet. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to leave before the weight of everything crushed her. The train moved through fields, then forests, then quiet towns that looked like memories she'd buried long ago. When she finally got off, she realized where she was. Her hometown, the same one she'd sworn she'd never return to. The air was colder there, cleaner somehow. The streets were cracked, the shops half empty, the people slower. She walked through them like a ghost, unnoticed, until she reached the house at the edge of town that it was smaller than she remembered. The paint was peeling, the fence crooked, but it was still there, her mother's house. Evelyn hesitated at the gate, her heart racing. She hadn't called, hadn't written. For 10 years, she'd convinced herself she was too busy, too important, too far gone. And yet, here she was. The door opened before she could knock. "Evelyn," her mother said softly, her voice trembling with both shock and something else. "Forgiveness, maybe. You came home." Evelyn tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. "Mom, I." Her mother stepped forward and pulled her into an embrace. It wasn't warm at first. It was awkward, hesitant. But then Evelyn felt something crack open inside her, something old, something real. And she began to cry. For the first time in years, she let herself cry. That night, as she lay in her childhood room surrounded by faded posters and the hum of crickets outside, Evelyn felt like a stranger in her own life. The walls held 1,000 memories of who she used to be, before the power, before the mask. She picked up an old photo from the nightstand. A little girl with messy hair, smiling at the camera, holding a sketchbook. She remembered that girl. She used to dream of creating beauty, of telling stories that mattered, not building brands, not manipulating emotions, but touching people's hearts. And for the first time in years, Evelyn whispered a truth she had forgotten how to say. "I don't even know who I am anymore." Outside, the wind moved through the trees, as if answering her. Tomorrow, she thought, I'll start again. But she didn't know yet that the hardest part was still coming, and that the past had one more lesson to teach her. The first morning in her hometown was eerily quiet. No emails, no phone calls, no headlines, just the chirping of birds outside her window and the faint scent of coffee drifting from the kitchen. Evelyn lay still for a while, listening, really listening, to a world that didn't need her to perform, fix, or lead. When she finally went downstairs, her mother was sitting at the table, reading the newspaper, her silver hair tied up in a loose bun. She looked older, smaller, and yet somehow stronger than Evelyn remembered. "I made breakfast," her mother said without looking up. "You still like oatmeal, don't you?" Evelyn hesitated. "I don't really eat breakfast anymore." Her mother folded the paper and met her eyes. "Then maybe that's part of the problem." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Evelyn sat down quietly. The oatmeal was too sweet, the coffee too bitter, but it was real. And for the first time in years, someone had made it for her without wanting anything in return. That afternoon, Evelyn took a walk through town. Everything looked smaller. The park where she'd once sketched in the shade of old maples. The bakery that still sold the same cinnamon rolls. Even the faded mural on the library wall that she'd painted in high school. She passed people who didn't recognize her anymore. To them, she was just another stranger. And somehow, that anonymity felt like mercy. She stopped by the old art supply store, now run by a quiet man named Arthur, who looked at her curiously when she asked for a sketchbook. "Haven't seen you before," he said. "New in town." Evelyn smiled faintly. "Sort of. I used to live here." He nodded. "Welcome back, then. Sometimes the town gives people a second chance, if they're willing to stay long enough." She wasn't sure if it was meant as wisdom or warning, but it stayed with her. Back at home, Evelyn spent the evening flipping through the blank pages of her new sketchbook. Her hand trembled slightly as she picked up a pencil. It felt strange, fragile, like holding a piece of her old self. She began to draw. First the view from the window, then the maple tree outside, then her mother sitting on the porch. The lines were uneven, but honest. And for the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't felt at her company, or in her penthouse, or at any glittering event she'd ever attended. Peace, not success, not validation, just peace. A week later, Evelyn went to the local community center. A sign on the bulletin board caught her eye. "Help needed. Art program for teens. Volunteers welcome." She almost walked past it, but something made her stop. She tore off the small paper tab with the phone number. Later that evening, she called. "Hi, my name is Evelyn," she began awkwardly. "I saw your notice about the art program. I was wondering if, can you come by tomorrow?" A warm voice interrupted. We always need an extra pair of hands. And just like that, Evelyn Ross, former CEO, marketing legend, and city icon, became a volunteer art teacher in a town most people forgot existed. The next day, she arrived early. The community center was small, its walls covered with children's drawings and faded posters. She was greeted by Lena, a middle-aged woman with bright eyes and paint on her sleeves. You're Evelyn? Yes. Great. Just so you know, these kids aren't interested in technique. They just need someone to remind them that art doesn't have to be perfect. Evelyn smiled faintly. That's a lesson I probably need too. When the class began, a dozen teenagers shuffled in, loud, restless, full of energy. They eyed Evelyn curiously, whispering among themselves. She introduced herself, feeling oddly nervous. Hi, everyone. I'm Evelyn. I used to work in advertising. A boy in the back smirked. So you're like a commercial lady? She laughed softly. Something like that. But I'm here to do something different. By the end of the first hour, her expensive white shirt had streaks of blue paint, and the kids were arguing about whether dragons should wear sunglasses. Evelyn couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed so freely. When the class ended, one girl stayed behind. Small, quiet, maybe 15. Her name was Maya. You drew that tree? Maya asked, pointing to Evelyn's sketch on the table. Evelyn nodded. It looks sad, the girl said. Evelyn smiled. Maybe it's just waiting for spring. Maya thought for a moment, then whispered, I draw when I'm sad too. And something about that, the fragile honesty of it, cracked Evelyn open in a way no headline ever had. Over the next few months, Evelyn kept coming back. Every week, every class, she brought supplies, taught them shading, showed them how to mix colors, but mostly, she listened to their stories, their small heartbreaks, their dreams. Many came from broken homes, some from families struggling to survive. But they still showed up. They still created. One afternoon, Maya handed her a drawing. A portrait of a woman standing in front of a cracked mirror. Half her face was perfect. The other half was fading into smoke. It's you, Maya said shyly. But I think you're fixing the broken side. Evelyn looked at the picture for a long time. You're a better artist than I ever was. Maya grinned. Nah, you just forgot how to draw yourself. That night, Evelyn sat by the window again, the town asleep under the stars. Her mother walked in quietly, holding 2 cups of tea. You've changed, her mother said softly. Evelyn smiled. Or maybe I just stopped pretending. Her mother sat beside her. When you left, I thought you'd forgotten who you were. But maybe you just needed to lose everything to find your way back. Evelyn nodded. I thought success meant being untouchable. But I think it's the opposite. Maybe success is being open enough to care again, even when it hurts. Her mother took her hand. That's what growing up really means. A few weeks later, Evelyn got a letter, not an email. A real letter. It was from Marcus, her old friend and CFO, the one who'd walked away. His handwriting was neat, the message short. Ev, I've been following what you're doing there. The world moved on from the scandal. People always do. But what you're building now, that's something real. If you ever want to start again, properly this time, I'd stand by you. But only if you promise not to lose yourself again. Evelyn stared at the letter for a long time. She didn't know how to respond. Maybe she didn't need to. Not yet. The next morning, she brought it to her art class. Maya read it, her eyes wide. So you're famous? Evelyn laughed. I was. Now I'm just someone trying to be useful. Maya tilted her head. Maybe that's better. Evelyn smiled. Maybe it is. Spring arrived slowly, painting the town in soft greens and golds. The art program was thriving now. More kids, more laughter, more life. Evelyn started a small exhibition for their work at the community center. She printed invitations, painted the walls herself, and spent nights arranging drawings under the flickering lights. When the exhibition opened, dozens of parents came, some proud, some curious, some teary-eyed. Evelyn watched from the corner as Maya's drawing, the broken mirror, hung in the center of the wall. It stopped people in their tracks. Lena touched Evelyn's shoulder. You did this. Evelyn shook her head. They did. But Lena smiled knowingly. You gave them a reason to believe they could. As the evening ended, Evelyn stood outside under the soft glow of streetlights. She felt lighter, not because her past was gone, but because she'd finally stopped running from it. She pulled out her phone, still cracked from the night she'd thrown it. Her finger hovered over Marcus's name for a moment. Then she typed, "Thank you. I'm not ready to come back yet. But maybe one day, when I can build something that matters. For now, I think I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." She hit send and smiled. The city skyline was miles away. But for the first time, Evelyn didn't miss it. The silence of the town wasn't emptiness anymore. It was healing, the kind that happened slowly, like dawn rising after a storm. Summer came early that year. The air shimmered above the quiet streets, and the fields outside town were thick with color. The community center's windows stood open, carrying laughter and the scent of paint through the halls. Evelyn leaned over a table, showing one of her students how to mix light blue with gray to make clouds. Her hands moved easily now, steady and confident. The tremor that once haunted her had disappeared. "See?" she said softly. "Clouds don't have to be perfect. They're allowed to be messy." The boy grinned. "Like life." Evelyn laughed. Exactly like life. She hadn't realized until that moment just how much she had changed. Months ago, she'd measured her worth in awards and numbers. Now, it was in quiet moments like this, watching someone believe in themselves for the first time. That evening, she walked home through the park, barefoot, her sandals dangling from one hand. The sun dipped low, turning everything gold. Children played by the fountain, the same one where she'd sketched as a teenager. She sat on a bench and took out her sketchbook, the one she'd started when she first returned. Its pages were almost full now. Her mother, the art class, the maple tree, Maya's smile, all captured in soft graphite lines. When she flipped to the first page, she noticed how hesitant those early strokes had been. Each line carried fear. Fear of failure, of being seen, of being small. But the last pages were alive, confident, free. Her phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. "Coming through town next week. Thought maybe we could catch up." Evelyn smiled faintly. The old her would have replied immediately, eager to prove she was fine. But now she paused. She wanted to meet him, not to fix the past, but to show that she'd finally learned to live without it. She typed back, "I'd like that. There's something I want to show you." The week passed quickly. Maya's art had been selected for a regional youth exhibition in the city, her first public showing. When Evelyn told her the news, the girl screamed with joy. "I can't go to the city," Maya said after the excitement faded. "I don't have anything to wear. I've never even been there." Evelyn smiled. "Then we'll go together. You don't need anything fancy, just yourself." For the first time in years, Evelyn packed a bag for the city. But this time, she wasn't chasing success. She was bringing someone else toward their dream. The city hadn't changed. Billboards still flashed with impossible smiles. Cafes buzzed with ambition. The same skyline that once thrilled her now felt smaller somehow. She and Maya arrived at the gallery early. Maya clutched her portfolio tight, her hands trembling. "Are you nervous?" Evelyn asked. "Terrified." "Good," Evelyn said. "That means you care." When they entered the gallery, Marcus was already there, standing near the door, hands in his pockets, watching her with a faint, almost disbelieving smile. "Ev," he said quietly, "you look different." She laughed softly. "Healthier, maybe." "Happy," he corrected. Evelyn nodded. "Yeah, I think I am." He looked around. "So this is your student's big day?" "Her first show," Evelyn said proudly. "She earned it." They walked together through the exhibit. Maya's piece hung near the center, the woman in the mirror, redrawn and richer now, shimmering with color. The broken side was still there, but it glowed with light that a small crowd gathered around it. Whispers of admiration filled the room. Maya's eyes widened in disbelief. "They like it," she whispered. "They love it," Evelyn said. "And you deserve it." Maya turned to her. "You taught me how to draw again." Evelyn smiled. "No, you just reminded me why it matters." After the exhibition, Marcus and Evelyn walked outside. The night was warm, the city lights painting the streets in gold and silver. They stopped near the river, the same place Evelyn used to walk when she needed to think. "Do you ever miss it?" Marcus asked. "The rush, the energy, the world we built." Evelyn thought for a moment. "I miss what it could have been," she said honestly. "Before we lost ourselves chasing what didn't matter." He nodded slowly. "You know, the board still talks about you. The company isn't the same without your heart." She laughed softly. "Heart doesn't fit well in spreadsheets." Marcus smiled. "Maybe not, but it's what made people follow you." He looked at her carefully. "I've been thinking about starting something new. Smaller, honest, focused on education, maybe creativity, something that gives back. I want you in, Evelyn. Not as the face of it, as its soul. The offer hung between them like fragile glass. A year ago, she would have said yes without breathing. Now, she hesitated. I don't know, she said softly. I've built a life I actually love. The kids, the art program, my mom. It's real. I'm not asking you to leave that, Marcus said. Just to share what you've learned. Help others like you find their way back. Evelyn looked out over the river, the reflections trembling in the current. Maybe second chances didn't mean returning to what was lost, but building something truer from its ruins. I'll think about it, she said finally. Marcus smiled. That's all I ask. Weeks passed after their meeting. Summer deepened into amber light and slow evenings. Evelyn spent most of her time at the community center, now buzzing with new volunteers. Word of her program had spread. Other towns wanted to copy it. She was invited to speak at a small education conference. At first, she refused. Public stages still scared her. But Lena convinced her otherwise. You don't have to be perfect, Evelyn, Lena said. You just have to be real. That's what people remember. And so, one crisp morning, Evelyn stood in front of a modest audience. Teachers, parents, and a few artists, her palms sweaty, her heart pounding. I used to think success meant being seen, she began. Now I think it means being understood. She told them about her company, her fall, her return home, and the kids who'd taught her what real purpose felt like. When she finished, the room was silent, not with judgment, but with understanding. Then came the applause, soft but steady. For the first time, she didn't crave it. She simply accepted it, with gratitude. That night, Evelyn sat under the same maple tree she'd drawn 100 times. Maya was beside her, sketching quietly. Miss Evelyn? Yes. Are you going back to the city? Evelyn shook her head. No. I think I've finally found my place here. Maya smiled. Good. Because we'd miss you. Evelyn looked at the sky, streaked with pink and gold. You know, when I was your age, I thought leaving meant freedom. But sometimes, staying is harder and braver. Maya nodded thoughtfully. Then you're really brave. Evelyn laughed. I'm just learning. Months later, she did visit the city, not to stay, but to open a new branch of her art program, funded by Marcus's new foundation. She stood beside him at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, their names on a small plaque together, the Begin Again initiative. Reporters asked questions. Cameras flashed, microphones crowded forward. But this time, Evelyn wasn't nervous. She wasn't selling anything. She was simply sharing. Why did you start this? One journalist asked. Evelyn smiled. Because I once forgot what mattered. And I don't want anyone else to make the same mistake. Art saved me. Maybe it can save others too. That evening, she returned to her small town, to her mother, to the kids, to her quiet life. She walked through the park again, where autumn leaves swirled in the wind. She sat on the same bench and opened a new sketchbook. The first line she drew wasn't hesitant this time. It flowed freely, confident, alive. On the first page, she wrote just one sentence. It's never too late to begin again. Then she smiled, closed the book, and watched the sunset dissolve into the horizon. No applause. No cameras, no noise, just peace. And this time, she knew it was enough.